We all want the gacha in Suikoden STAR LEAP to be as player-friendly as possible. That's obvious. Nobody wants to feel like they're being taken advantage of by it. It could be a great little side thing to dabble in and have fun with, or maybe it'll be a total disaster and it'll just be flat out unfair. When it comes to the gacha in Suikoden STAR LEAP, we don't know too much. However, based on what the developers have said, the gacha will be used exclusively for characters, and those characters will be the ones from past Suikoden games, not new characters. No runes or equipment are said to be part of the gacha either, and that, my friends, is some pretty good news. Many gacha games out there nickel and dime their player base for multiple aspects of a game: characters, items, skins, you name it. In Suikoden STAR LEAP, gacha characters will be attainable by using in-game currency. That currency is then used in the gacha mechanic. The developers have also promised that the gacha will be a side element to the main game, that it should not intrude on the main experience, which means the gacha should not act as any kind of wall to progress through the main game. Side content, though, remains to be seen. I would assume they will give hardcore gacha users some kind of incentive to pull for many characters, aside from nostalgia or aesthetic reasons. So we know a little bit of how things will work with the gacha, but it is the things we don't know yet about the gacha that could make or break the system. The first thing that will really impact the gacha's success is the character pull rates and the ability of players to earn gacha currency in-game for free. Will the pull rates be abysmally low, like some of the more predatory gacha games out there, or will the availability of in-game currency to use on the gacha be so low and impossible to earn it will force players to spend money? Like many of you guys, I am committed to spend as little money as possible in this game. We get 108 Stars of Destiny for free after all. But I am only human, the power of nostalgia is strong, and there are some incredible characters from past Suikoden games I would love to recruit. My boy! That's where the game's pity and gacha currency come into play. For those of you that don't know, pity is when after a certain number of rolls in a game's gacha, you are rewarded with a significantly boosted gacha rate for attaining a super rare character or item. Depending on the game, it could be anywhere from a 50 to 100% increased chance. Some games like Genshin Impact have a relatively good pity system where players will attain a 5-star character by the 90th pull if they have not got one before then. 90 pulls might sound like a lot, but with the large amount of in-game currency available through different means, such as progressing through the story, side quests, and exploration, in addition to the constant free giveaways by the developers, this was very reasonable in Genshin Impact's case. However, as good as it might be in Genshin, you will not be able to get every character and item by playing this way, but you most certainly can save for your favorite characters quite easily. Then on the opposite end, you have games like Fate Grand Order, which have a hard pity of 330 pulls, paired with limited ways to acquire free gacha currency in-game. I hope Suikoden STAR LEAP goes more Genshin, obviously. An atrocious gacha rate with bad pity and no way to earn currency in-game to pull for characters would still piss off a ton of people, those who spend money or not, since they would see the gacha just sitting there being inaccessible. For many people, it would just be a constant reminder at how greedy the developers are. Konami, be generous. I know that's an ironic thing to say to a company who builds literal gambling machines. Lots of people are on very strict incomes and cannot dole out money for every character. Konami, don't be fucking greedy. At least make it so those who play the game and can't drop a lot of money can get some of their favorite characters for free. Another concern I have with the gacha in STAR LEAP is when compared to a game like Genshin Impact that is this massive open world playground with so much to do, with so many different ways to earn the gacha currency, STAR LEAP will instead rely on repetitive and grindy activities for this. Now, this will of course be the case to some degree. All gacha games have repetitive elements to encourage daily play and make it a part of people's routine. But some games more than others are more generous with their rewards. And hopefully STAR LEAP will be one of the better ones. It's very likely there's going to be a lot less variety in terms of how we earn the gacha currency. But hopefully the developers will recognize that and still be generous with the gacha currency rewards in-game. Before I go over this next point, here's some quick gacha lingo for you. you might be unfamiliar with. There are generally 3 categories gacha players fall into: whales, dolphins, and minnows. Minnows rarely or never spend money on the gacha, dolphins spend a moderate amount, and whales spend significantly more than the other 2 groups, and sometimes can pump in thousands or tens of thousands of dollars into the gacha. Whales are often, but not always, a large percentage of these gacha games' revenue. Sometimes it's as high as 70% of an entire game's revenue, depending on the title. And whales can often be less than 1% of the entire player base. These dudes and gals are often, not always, but often the ones that pay for these games to exist. So where I'm going with this is whales, if they are often responsible for funding these types of games, why not be a little more generous with the casual players if you're depending on such a small player base to essentially make your game profitable? It sounds like these players are going to spend a lot of money anyway, so why hurt the little guy? And that kind of comes to my next point. There also seems to be evidence to support that when developers of gacha games aren't super greedy and are generous with their gacha pull rates and ways to make in-game currency, that the amount of dolphins or minnows that spend money on the title increases. And this generally happens because people don't like to feel like their money's being wasted, and if they feel like they're getting a return on it, they're more likely to spend money. Being super stingy on the casual players that just want a few of their favorite characters, I think it's a lose-lose situation if the developers are super stingy on the casual players that just want a few of their favorite characters. If Konami just focuses on making a good game with cool characters and keeping the gacha component as a side element like they said, while also having the gacha being somewhat generous, I think that's a win-win situation for everybody. We'll like the game and spend a little bit of money on the game probably. One gacha pitfall Suikoden STAR LEAP should avoid that some particularly predatory gacha titles impose on their players is being made to spend money in order to progress through the game. Basically, some gacha titles make it so that your skill at the game won't carry you forward no matter how good you are, forcing you to purchase super rare characters and equipment to progress. But in STAR LEAP's case, as there is no equipment in the gacha, and it has been said we should be able to progress through the whole story without having to dip into the gacha, it should be fine, and something we don't have to worry about. However, limited time banners could be a thing, and they're a pain in the ass. If you're not familiar with them, they are events where specific characters are only available for a limited time, maybe a few weeks or even a month, and then they disappear out of rotation with the potential to be unavailable for many months on end. Why they are particularly insidious is because this then creates a FOMO effect, getting players to spend money out of fear they won't have the time to collect enough in-game resources to get their favorite characters. Suikoden STAR LEAP does not need to do this. Yes, games like Genshin Impact do this and it works for them, but this does not need to be the case. I imagine there will be some characters that undoubtedly get reserved for very special occasions like Luca Blight or series protagonists, but on the whole, this doesn't have to happen. Many gacha titles exist that permanently add characters to their recruitment pool, never or almost never putting them out of rotation. Suikoden has so many characters in its portfolio, banners like this would be incredibly difficult to pull off unless they contained many characters within them, or changed quite often. Suikoden STAR LEAP not creating the FOMO effect with its banners would be a nice addition, and it would make it feel like the gacha is more of a side element if we're not constantly being bombarded with this FOMO effect. Then there are the daily commissions or quests, another staple of the industry which makes you want to log into the game daily to earn in-game currency to spend on pulls for characters. This is most likely going to be part of the game. Heck, live service games and MMOs do this all the time too, as it's a very reliable and tried method of getting players to come back to your game. But if players are patient and don't need to roll for every character, it could be a great way to save up currency without having to spend actual money. Finally, this last point isn't about the gacha, but it is a concern I have with Suikoden STAR LEAP because it's a gacha title. Minimize the grind. A lot of gacha titles make you grind for hours and hours and hours to progress. Regular encounters in STAR LEAP already look like they're going to last a bit longer, which is okay to me because they were often over almost too quickly in the mainline Suikoden games, but it's a fine line to ride. Suikoden games were never very grindy affairs, and this game shouldn't be either. Some gacha titles make it so there is a power level requirement to progress. Naturally, RPGs need your party to be a certain strength level to progress. But often this can be done naturally in RPGs as you progress through the game. I expect there might be some grinding required, but it should not force the player to grind for hours and hours on end just to progress. It is so obvious when games do this, when they make you grind, and it's just padding. That's all they're doing. They're just padding it out. It's not fun. It's just making you invest more time in the game. I think we would all rather this game respect our time and have a steady, natural feeling progression. For me personally, it would make me more likely to come back and continue playing the game as new chapters and content are released. Making people grind unnecessarily to progress through the story is a disservice to a game that is a new numbered Suikoden title in almost everything but name. So those are my thoughts about the gacha. Supposedly it's not going to be intrusive in the main game, but since it is there, it can still be constructed in a way that everyone can enjoy, whether you're spending thousands of dollars or no dollars. If any of you have any more experience with gacha games, how they work, and what you hope to see from Star Leap's gacha mechanic, let everybody know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a good one. Peace.